What's up, everybody? Facebook family, thank you for being here watching. This is actually the first live stream. First live Tom and I are doing together as far as the Mike and Tom official show. This is
going to be dangerous, Mike.
Hey, that's all right. I just got to reel you in sometimes. You know, you like to go.
I just helped you out. I was your barista.
I know. Tom got me a tiniest little bit of coffee here. It's like a shot glass of coffee. Yeah. Anyway, I want to give a shout out to Randy Martin and the crew over at Covenant Coffee. We just had a tiny bit of conversation with Jared about that prior to, but Covenant Coffee does some awesome things. First of all, they have amazing coffee.
Great coffee.
They have great service, but the biggest thing they do is a ministry. So these guys, they employ aged out,
emancipated
foster youth.
Foster kids.
And they provide them jobs, training, skills, leadership, mentorship, and everything else on top of the coffee. But Randy's been serving that community for a decade plus with multiple group homes.
It's called Covenant Ministries.
Covenant Ministries, that's right. And so everybody that's involved with Randy, Covenant Coffee, Covenant Ministries, they're vetted. They actually have a heart for the foster youth, and you know, it's not just about making a buck, because all of this is nonprofit. This is Randy's ministry.
Because there'll be a statistic if people don't go out there and help them, because once the money attached to them after 18.
Oh yeah. And I don't remember all those statistics, but I know that it's a crazy number. I've heard them talk about it before. Yeah, the drug abuse, suicide, incarceration, and everything else, homelessness. But anyway, so if you guys are out there, especially if you're in Bakersfield, but even if you're not, covenantcoffee.org, or just go visit their shop over there on North Chester.
Hey, if you guys are out there, like us, share us. I love the little live sign up there, Mike. I told you that over and over again. I love being live. And we have our guest, Jared Fleming. Am I pronouncing that right, Jared? Because
that's an easy one, Tom.
Yep, you are. You're spot on.
Something right. Good job.
Am I going to get paid?
Maybe. We'll see. We always love doing stuff with Jared. Jared, awesome to have you on this show with us. No,
good to be with you guys. I'm honestly more grateful for you guys than anything. Your friendship, being able to run into you guys at events, I absolutely love it. And
we love the relationship, Jared, because Jared, he does a lot of stuff out there.
I think we can share his title.
Can we share your title? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't actually know the title. I know you work for TP Faith, Turning Point Faith, but what is the actual title?
Yeah, so I'm the director of TPSA Faith. You can call me a strategic director if you want. So I oversee our initiative that we're running with TPSA Faith. So it's actually incredible, and I love what I get to do. Working with incredible pastors and meeting great friends like you across the country who are anti-woke and pro-truth. It's amazing.
Tell us a little bit about that, because I know, Jared, that in your past you were a pastor. And I think you said you worked for Laurie and Harvest Ministries. And so have you always felt like you had a calling into the ministry to help people?
Yeah, I mean, actually, what's so funny is when I got called to the ministry, it was actually my mother-in-law. Before I was even saved. So I started dating my girlfriend.
You're saved. Oh wow, I love that.
So my mother-in-law jokingly said it to my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and she goes, how funny would it be if Jared got saved and become a pastor one day? And sure enough, several years later, I ended up, went to Bible college, went to Grand Canyon University, studies degree, all of that, and then came on as a pastor. So it's just funny.
So I got a quick question for you, since you went to GCU. No, let me go. So do you? He always likes to take over. So I got to push back sometimes.
You do all the time.
Do you know David Bowen over at GCU? He's a good friend of Tom and mine. He teaches a biblical worldview.
He teaches biblical worldview. He's been on our show before, and he's a local pastor in your hometown.
That's right.
Which is Phoenix.
I was just visiting when I went over for Strong Church.
What's the name of his church?
It's a smaller church. I think it's Standing Stones, I believe it is.
Okay. Yeah. The name sounds really familiar. I don't know. I probably have met him before.
Well, we have so many friends, and I have some family that went to Grand Canyon University. It's a great college, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Very strong college. I love it. Jerry Angelo, who helped with the whole program at Grand Canyon University is phenomenal. Everybody there is awesome. Tim Griffin. Yep.
It's funny because I was looking at the Match Madness possible brackets, and Grand Canyon always has a great basketball team. They do. They put out a outstanding. David was telling us, Jared, that there's 100,000 students online in Grand Canyon University, and he gets the opportunity to minister to them all because they all have to take a biblical worldview. And there again, we'll introduce you guys one day because he's gonna. We're actually doing a podcast for him, right, Mike?
Yeah. We're doing so. We're actually have some assets. We're helping him launch this week.
That's awesome.
Shows you how much I know, or Mike. Or
you're helping.
How much Mike keeps me dark. So let me get this straight, Jared. So a girl that you were dating and liked, mother claimed you for God's kingdom.
That's awesome.
100%. Yep, she did.
What was going through your mind when you heard that? Like, am I in the right family? Was your wife at the current time your old girlfriend? Was she like, oh mom?
100%. Every step of the way, she's like, my mom just keeps preaching to you. And I'd go to church with them on Sundays. Like my family, completely not Christian. No affiliation. They went to Catholic high school. That's about all. Kind of religious background, if you will, for them. But what was so funny is we were in high school. My wife's, we're high school sweethearts. And so I was a sophomore, she was a junior, and we both got out of really rough relationships, and we found each other. She wasn't really walking with the Lord. I definitely wasn't. A couple months into our relationship, her little sister shared the gospel with me. And
that happened? Were you coming home from a date or?
Yeah, no, we were just hanging out one night at their house, and we were like in between watching movies. And I think we just went over to her sister's room. And sure enough, what turned into what we thought was just going to be like a 5-minute conversation turned into probably a 45-minute conversation with her. I go downstairs after that conversation with her little sister in her room. Britt and I go downstairs, my wife, and I sit there. I tell her, I was like, we're going to start living for Jesus. And
I love that. Good job. What a ministering family.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the impact that Jared's had.
Well, Jared's having an awesome impact in so many areas. And he has for how long has it been now, Jared? Because you were with Harvest Crusades and as a pastor there, did all the event stuff with Laurie. And now you're over at TP Faith and you're making a big impact there with a lot of different partners that you're working with. So how long has it been since that whole journey started?
Yeah. Gosh. So I've been with Turning Point for about 3 years now.
Okay.
And so I was actually there in Riverside for about, I think it was 2.5, 3 years with Greg there. And there was a stint where I was also on staff at a church as a pastor here in downtown Phoenix for a little bit too. So there's been probably
close to a decade.
8. Yeah, close to it. Yeah, about 8 years or so. So
I love that. So Jared, kind of give us the an idea, because there again, I've been in the ministry and I've touched a lot of areas in the ministry, but you've had a chance to grow from one of the largest. I mean, there again, there was just a movie out with Greg Laurie in it for called Jesus Revolution, and they had this great ministry at Harvest in Riverside and multiple video venues all over. And as you came out of that, you went to Phoenix, and was that stop at that church before TP, or was that during that?
Yeah, so I was at that church right after Harvest, and then the pandemic happened. So I went from Harvest to this church in downtown Phoenix. Pandemic happened, and I'm sitting there online. I think it was probably May. It was right after George Floyd stuff happened, right? And I'm watching a video of Charlie Kirk calling out pastors across the country. And I'm seriously in the living room. I remember this very clearly. I'm sitting there in my living room watching this video of Charlie Kirk calling out pastors. And I'm thinking at the first part, I'm like, man, this guy's so wrong. By the end of it, I'm fully convinced and convicted that churches and pastors need to be standing up against what's happening in our country, from George Floyd and the BLM movement to, opening up our churches because suicide rates and being impacted. So I was so moved. I reached out and was started following everything with Charlie. That was my first really introduction to him, May of 2020.
So in thinking there, let me take this back.
Yeah.
Because now you see Charlie personally during the week, right?
Yep.
And so what was it like to be there on the screen? Because when Charlie calls people out, he calls them out.
Oh yeah.
Mike and I, we went to San Jose, and was it San Jose?
San Diego?
No, went to San Jose.
Fresno.
See, you
Fresno.
Was it?
We never went to San Jose. It was Fresno. I promise.
Up north. And
Matt White's hometown.
Yeah, and we saw Charlie for the first time. And you do leave going, I'm not sure I agree. And I've got to let this process. Yeah. But as Mike and I were talking, I think we came home that week, Mike, and we said, no, we agree.
Yeah. Well, I so much, and I got fired up when I shared that. I haven't told you about this yet, Jared, but I went back to, and I might take some heat for even saying this. I don't really care, but
I was going to ask, do you really care?
But I don't care. I don't care. Jared knows I don't care. But the thing is, I was back visiting a friend in Nashville, the same trip that I saw you on, and he was saying,
I got you. I know where you're going.
There's some churches different here, because we have churches that have homosexual pastors, and we're more accepting, and blah blah blah. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that that's not right. And then I got to thinking about it. I started getting mad. And I was talking to my wife. I said, this is exactly why Jesus was flipping over tables in the synagogue, right? And so when Charlie talks about the cowardly, complacent, and I forget what courageous churches, that's exactly what he's talking about. And I said, all right, now I get it from that moment, because I kind of got it before, but then when it really sunk in, it was on that trip and having that conversation. I'm like, I can 100% carry that message.
Yeah, and it's almost like the enemy showed his hand in 2020, where you could see how he infiltrated, in every industry. It was already there. We saw Hollywood. We've seen everything happen for so many years now. But then you got to see it firsthand on how the enemy infiltrated the government and how he's infiltrating the church. And you saw woke, quiet, complicit churches. This is why I love Letter to the American Church with Yorgen Matesias in this film that we just produced and launched with them, that it literally, he proposes that the American church right now is what the German church was going through right before World War II, right? And I think he's right. I do.
Eric has shook up the church world.
Yeah, just a little bit.
He has. And I read that book. Mike and I picked it up in San Diego when we saw you for the first time.
You got that one right?
Yeah, I did. and I read it. Mike knows.
He reads through a book in like 30 minutes. He's like the new speed reader. I don't understand how he does it.
And there again, it's interesting because you have to digest what Eric is saying. And if you're out there, I would encourage you to go out and even if you don't maybe say you were where Jared was and you were where maybe I was in the beginning. If you look at things, and I'm thinking as we're in 2024, that means Charlie was like 26 years old because he's only like 30, 31 right now, right? And so you take this 24, 25, we're used to having those kids get in our faces.
Right.
We really are.
Yeah.
But Charlie was out there saying, and I love his ability to have such dynamic confrontations and not back or shy away from them. And there again, I've told you, and you know that my daughter's a talent director at Daily Wire. So I'm used to that style, but more from some older guys like Ben and Michael and Andrew and Jeremy. They have a very in your face style, but with facts. And Ben's just, got out of his 3-week reign of being a rapper, where my song, my facts don't care about your feelings. I think that's where you guys are on it, right? You're not saying, hey, this is why we don't, this is why we're presenting what we do. Because do you feel, Jared, that because we just tried to, and I never had a chance to, because we were really excited because we thought we had an event with Charlie over in San Luis. And I think you heard that from Boomer, that as we did, we had a ministry partner that went to a theater down, and I won't say names.
Okay.
And
you stopped me.
I did. I knew where this I knew this guy's going. and we still live in California, so we have to be careful, I think. So I was so shocked when we had it, And then the minority owner of the theater called Adam Magana, our pastor at Active Church in San Luis, said, "No, that Charlie's too controversial." I was like, "What? You can't do that in California." And then Boomer told me, who is the California regional director under you, Jared, that welcome to our world. And I was like, it was a sting. It really was. It was a sting. And being in the ministry and accepted, and not by everybody, but people like not pushing back on you by something that they're not agreeing with you with. I mean, churches have a complex relationship with, municipalities and things, but it bothered me, Jared. It really did.
Yeah. One of my favorite, chapters in the book with Yorgen Matesias was the idol of evangelism. I don't know if you remember that. One of my favorite chapters, having come from the crusade ministry with Laurie and been a part of many churches where the focus is evangelism and reaching the lost. And you're not discrediting them by saying reaching the lost is very, very important, right? There's also an element here where I think we have to realize as Christians, as ministry leaders, as pastors, the problem with the American church is not we don't have an evangelism problem. We actually have a discipleship problem, right?
So everybody has to realize that.
Yep. We take Matthew 28 and we think, oh man, I need to go into all the world and preach the gospel. Yes, but you're also missing part 2 of that, where you're supposed to teach them and make sure that they're obedient to all that he commands, right? And I just butchered that, but really what you see is Jesus saying, no, I want you to be obedient to my commands. I want you to walk out what it means to be a disciple. I want you to teach them my commands, right? And so you don't actually just have an evangelism problem, you have a discipleship problem here in America. So Charlie's focus is, he always says this, and I love it when he says it, because everybody in the room, people who see Charlie as very political, and he's going to come in and he's going to, bash, the left, and he's going to spew hatred. But he gets up and he says, my top priority, and everybody in this room, in a room full of pastors, he says, our top priority is to preach the gospel and reach the lost, right? That is our top priority.
I hear him say that every time.
Yeah. And our second, number 2 on this list for us is to make sure that we can do the first thing. And we can get into all these second tier, third tier issues that divide the church and creates denominations and different sects and within the body of Christ and divides the body of Christ. We can get into all of that. But really, if we can't make sure that we can do the first thing, which is preach the gospel to the entire world, we're going to be debating our theological differences in prison. And honestly, what that does is when Charlie says that in the room full of pastors, it kind of, all of them are kind of flabbergasted, I guess. And they're just sitting there and they're like, wow, he's 100% right. Because we could end up like the German church, where if we're not careful, we're going to end up being completely, complicit to a woke agenda that's going to destroy families, that dishonors God, that actually hates God. And we're going to see an American church and pastors who really aren't actually standing on the truth at the end of the day for the sake of reaching the lost.
So, right? Speaking of German, let me finish, Tom. So what?
I wanted to say hi to Reed Lovin. Lovin, thank you for your comment right there. I'm bringing in our audience, Mike. Right. That's podcasting 101.
It is.
And you're trying to stop me from doing that.
What's up, Reed? Love you, bro. Anyway, speaking of Germans, my favorite, one of my favorite pastors, also one of your favorite pastors, Pastor Yorgen Matesias.
Yes.
Down in San Diego, California, growing a phenomenal church. He said it's
called Awaken.
Yeah, that's right. And Tom and I are going to be going to their men's retreat coming up in April. He said, and I love the way he said it. He said, God is love, and people try to stick on that, and they're like, oh, we got to be loving. But you can't separate that from God is also truth, right? Yep. So God is both truth and love. So if I can't tell you the truth, I'm not loving you, right? So you have to hear the truth. And I think that's so absent from so many people's messages, and even in the churches, frankly, which is sad, because again, you go back and there's churches with homosexual pastors. We love homosexual people. We love all the people, right? But that doesn't mean that we need to lie to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is something that I kind of, Mike has heard me talk about it at many events and things, is I think there's a lot of churches that like to fish in the same pond. And a lot of churches just transfer the same fish, and what does it look like to really go out and evangelize? Because I think, Jared, what you and I have talked about in the past is that you and I have a similar background. I was raised heathen. I mean, there isn't anything that godly in my life, until I was 34 years old. And the message of Christ really impacted my life, and it had to enter into every segment of my life, my thought process, my all my abilities. And I told people when I first came out as a new voter, I was registered as a Democrat, and I thought it was the right thing to do. My dad did, but I remember when my dad came to me and goes, "Tom, I think we're on the wrong side of this, because I think the party that we liked moved and left us." And I love what Glenn Beck said in the
that was such a good talk
at the TP Amfest, is that you, on both sides of the spectrum, the severe left and the severe right, you have these ideologies that basically are going to both take us into communism and socialism and whatever. But in the middle, there is this group, 50% on both sides, that if we can effectively reach those, we're all pretty much like-minded. And the devil just likes to keep us fighting over and over again with different topics, and doctrine is a huge one. And after being in the ministry for 30 years, I can't tell you the number of times I've seen doctrine stop great ministry.
Oh, it really is one of the most frustrating things for me, is you see the second tier, and we have to be really clear on what a second tier and third tier issue is theologically, because oftentimes you have one camp who will say everything is first tier, and from where you stand on end times, right? People are literally dividing over somebody's eschatology, and you're like, you're missing it. We are literally watching kids being mutilated, and you're over here debating and dividing over a second tier, probably even third tier theological position. It just makes no sense. So it's really aggravating. So when we have, these big pastor meetings, or we'll do pastor roundtables across the country, it's honestly a miracle that these guys even show up and are in the same room. This, Mike and Tom, you guys are in it, and you see how hard it is with some of these pastors. Everybody's territorial, but you realize, no, let's put it down. We're about the kingdom. We're here to advance God's mission on this earth, and we're less about building our own kingdom here. We really are.
I've always told people you can either build castles or the kingdom.
Yeah.
There's too many ministries that are building castles. And one of the things that was disappointing me as I've seen things like this happen is that it takes away from our purpose. It takes away an ability to really minister to somebody as you go, and you're saying, I love you and I want you to get to know Christ. And I love that Charlie always says that. I mean, I think when he came out and he spoke at TP America, I forgot the shirt. I think it says, I believe. If that was the one message you got out there, is I believe in Jesus. And everybody wants to keep saying that, it's the Charlie that they see at the campus, that people are offended that he's there. But if you actually listen to him, I mean, he's there again. It's my experience with the Daily Wire group. It's like, well, I'm just trying to answer their questions. Boomer does a great job too. When he goes out to the campuses and just says, hey, we're going into the lion's den where this ideology can start and take root at, and helping break it down. Because, I mean, right now, it hasn't been a fair fight.
No, what's most convicting for me, especially when I was watching this video of Charlie, is we have so many Christians who just sit on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
No, as a Christian, you're commanded to go into all the world. That means you're playing offense and you're not just playing defense for the gospel. It's a totally different mindset where you're saying, I'm more than a conqueror, and I can go into this place with confidence that my God is with me, and I'm going to preach and proclaim and stand on truth. And there's a certain level of confidence Charlie and other truth tellers can have when they go into these college campuses in very hostile environments. But you really see how they spew hatred,
Well, I think if you're just like Riley Gaines, I know Turning Point had her. She was there at TP America Fest. And you just think about what that young woman has laid down to, I mean, she never planned on being a poster child for, women's rights, really. I mean, she's standing up for women's rights to compete in athletics against just biological women. I mean, that's really it, isn't it? I mean, am I missing something here? She's just like, we want to have a fair platform, and they're not giving it. So then she got to the point where she's a poster child. She's going, just trying to share that main message, but everybody thinks she's against a people group. She's against a thought process, right? I mean, she's not against that people group. She's against a thought process that they have bought into.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same thing with, any kind of phobia, right? They try to label us that you're, a Christian nationalist. That term gets thrown around a lot. Homophobia, that gets thrown around. You know what I mean? They throw these phobias out there, transphobia, the whole thing. But you realize what they're just trying to do is they're trying to control the narrative, and they're trying to corner the church to continue to be apathetic, complicit. And this is why you have guys like Russell Moore, who are starting organizations who are completely opposite of TPSA Faith, where they're literally starting organizations. His is called the After Party. And he's trying to encourage Christians to not get involved in politics because it hurts their witness as Christians. It's just insane. As again, kids are being mutilated. Family divorce rates are higher than they've ever been. Suicide's higher than it's ever been. You look at the dropout rates that continue to increase across the country. I mean, the list goes on. So
that's what
those guys, they've got a wicked agenda that they're
well, and I think that's why Tom and I and you and all the people that we're associated with are so passionate about what we do, because like it's not about it's not about making money. It's about how can we change directions, because we've seen too much of it, right? You and I talked about in Nashville. We're in a literal war with the gates of hell for our children, for the soul of our families and our country, and not just our country, but the entire world, frankly. And we have this evil, and we know how this plays out in the end. We've read the book, right? But at the end of the day, like, God didn't say, hey, go and sit in the corner and just wait for it to end. He said, go out there and make disciples, just like he said. And that's why I'm passionate about it. That's why I know Tom's passionate about it. I know you are, Jared, because we care, and you have young kids just like I do. So we care about the future that our kids grow up in. And I talk about this all the time, Jared, that there's the Christian Mike who understands, hey, you don't play by the same rules. Like, I live by a different set of laws and all those things. But then there's also the American Mike that says, I care about the society and culture my kids grow up in.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's exactly why I'm here. Like I sat there, watched that video of Charlie. I watched the BLM activists burning cities down. I watched, the corruption in our own government, all of that taking place. And what I was burdened with is I sat there and I remember laying there one night, and I remember thinking, let it not be said about me that I stood on the sidelines and watch our country burn to the ground and watch our freedoms be taken away from us. So I sat there and I'm like, here I am, Lord, send me. I want to go where you want me to go. I'll say yes to whatever you have in store. And sure enough, here we are with TPSA Faith. And there's 2,500 churches in our network who are feeling and believe and align with the same mission, right? So
what's next, Jared? I mean, maybe kind of throw a definition on TP Faith for us.
Yeah, we're here to engage, equip, and empower pastors to be civically engaged and restore biblical values. So this means we're not playing defense, but we're playing offense for biblical values.
And what is the next? Because I know I've seen the amazing pastor summits, and I've seen the Marifest, and I know the Blexit. We're going to have Pierre on next week, and he'll get a chance to talk about restoring the Black communities, to give them substance, or at least help them truly help. And I know Candace and Tatum are involved in that, right? Yeah, I forgot his first name.
Yep.
Yeah, Brandon Tatum. And I like this. So what's next for TP Faith? Because I mean, they're organizing pastors, and you guys got great things for them to be involved with. But tell them where you guys are going in this next season.
Yeah, I mean, What's crazy about 2024 is it's an election year. And, what's part of this is, we're not here to tell you who to vote for or left. We're not here to do that. What we're here to do is to make sure that pastors and Christians and churches are fully equipped to know what they're voting on and what they're voting for, right? So we can define where the American church should be standing on, what they should be standing firm on when we go into hot seasons like this and going into 2024. But past, the election and it being an election year, TPSA Faith is going to keep on reaching more pastors. That's going to be our goal. There's 300,000 churches in America. We only have about 2,500, which is great. We've made huge progress. And it's awesome to have this, but there's still 300,000 churches in America. And 200 something thousand that we haven't reached quite yet. How many of those 200,000 are going to align with us? I don't know yet, but I'm willing to find out and see what churches and which pastors are willing to come into our network and stand with us as we contend for liberty and for truth and for the kingdom across this country. So we're here to be able to resource pastors, week in and week out. We're going to continue to expand. We're going to continue to see, future events. One that we're doing that we just recently announced is the Believer Summit. In a highly, contested year like this is with the election, we're launching a new event we've never done before called the Believer Summit. We're going to have thousands of Christians in West Palm Beach who are going to be completely equipped to go into this election cycle, knowing what they're contending for and what does the Bible have to say about liberty and freedom and even our Constitution. You'd be shocked to see how many Christians and pastors, and you know this, Tom, how many pastors haven't even read the Constitution, let alone the Declaration of Independence before. And so we're committed to continuing to push pastors to be educated and equipped in the public square.
I keep two of those little pamphlets that you guys give, which is that little pocket Constitution.
Yeah.
One in my truck, and I try to keep one with me wherever I go. We had a great guest, and I would love for Mike Boudreaux to, because I've talked to Boomer about getting Mike on the show. Mike and I, Harvey and I, got to sit down with him and interview him for a couple hours.
Yeah,
and I would love, and he wants to be connected with Turning Point. Jared, I think I told Boomer that and told you that. There again, you've got a guy who is running for CB20, Kevin McCarthy's seat here in Kern County, and he got some great endorsements. I mean, he got Shannon Grove and our Donnie Youngblood, our sheriff here, and they both believe in what Mike's doing. And of course, we got our friend Vince Fong, who carries Kevin McCarthy's endorsement and also Donald Trump's endorsement and others. And so I there again, as Kern County is going to be voting on that. I don't see how we could go wrong on that. We're going to send a godly man to Congress, and I don't want to lose any friends over that if you guys are watching. They're all friends of our show, and I think that's a hard thing to do, Jared. Do you ever find that in your life, that you have some relationships that get cut off because they are misunderstanding TP Faith's mission?
I mean, yes, 100%. I mean, you get people who unfollow you just because you shared something on Instagram or you shared something on Facebook. You get people who used to be friends with me in the ministry who now want nothing to do with me, which is just very ironic. And then you have a lot of people who say, hey, I love what you're doing. Keep doing it, but I'll never work with you, right? Because I'm too scared of what people at my church are going to say. That happens more than you think.
Yeah. Well, and I think you have to appreciate their point too. I mean, I just got off the phone today with a young pastor, and he's bold, and but he's still. I'm in a California city that a lot of my parishioners would be offended for me to come out this way, and I go, well, I mean, that's a personal choice, and I tell people all the time, I go, that's a personal choice. And I was just talking to him because just ministry partner, friends with our show, has been on our show several times. And I said, but we're still friends, right? And they're like, yeah, we're still friends. But it's just one of those things where you have to get the right impression out there and say, hey, it's okay to agree to disagree, but at least we're having conversation, right?
Yeah. And really, it's all about the conversation element to this. Most people don't even want to engage in the conversation because you've always been told, don't talk about politics. Don't talk about politics. You hear it from, Bible college, and when you're getting your bachelor's degree to seminary, all these guys are told the same thing, but it's complete garbage. And so this is why I'm actually really excited when people, are youth pastors and they show up to our conferences. I'm like, I love it, because what you're doing is you're now reaching a future potential senior pastor of a church, and you're changing hearts and minds, and we're reprogramming them to think, no, Christians, it's okay to get in the public square and start influencing and being a salt and light. And no matter what sphere or industry you want to get into, the church has to.
Well, because the reality of that, Jared, is if they're not the ones doing it, then who is, right? If we're not speaking up as Christians, then who is the voice that people are listening to? If we're not speaking up as pastors or Christians or, influential people that care about the gospel, care about God, and care about society, and care about culture, who's the one that is speaking up? And it's going to be people that have a very different opinion.
Right. Yeah. This is why we started doing this new project with Pastor John Amanchukwu, and we just take him to school. We take them across to the wokest school boards across the country, and you should see some of these school board members when they see a packed room, because we partner with a couple of churches in these cities that invite us out, and we fly out John, and he comes and speaks. There's completely for free, and he gets there, and you should see the school board members. They're freaking out. They're panicking. We've heard stories of teachers who are walking by, and they see how full the room is. They're like, wow, what's going on? What happened? And they're freaking out. And these school board members, they realize, man, I might not make, might not be able to run again. And I'm probably going to lose my race this upcoming year because they just voted on a transgender bathroom bill that is completely wrong. And so you have 200, 300 fired up Christians who are packed out in this room, and they're upset because they're seeing that their kids are being indoctrinated at the public education system. And this is slowly but surely we're taking over and getting Christians engaged in the public square.
And this is something, and I've told you, Jared, my wife's a superintendent in a California school district, and she's been very effective. Yeah. And she keeps telling people, and I tell pastors, and I meet them, my wife will look at people and say, don't give up on us, because we are making a difference in the public school. Yeah. Whereas there are some of us that believe, and my wife's number one mission, she'll tell everybody, what's your purpose? She goes, is to be there for the kids. Mm-hmm. That's my number one purpose. And I want to be there, and I want to be able to encourage kids. I want to be able to teach them. And that's why she went into education. But she says, the public school system is the largest missionary field in the United States.
That's right.
She goes, we're on the front lines. We're trying to basically go back to, I'll say it, reading, writing, arithmetic. We're trying to keep it on track. Yep. And all we need, and she just tells people when they say, what can we do? They go, she'll pray for us. Not every kid's going to go to Christian school. They just aren't. And, you're going to need your saints that are in the public school system to help be there and bring in some balance to that, what you just talked about, as far as these young pastors. And I remember Charlie speaking at TP Amera Fest when he came out, and he goes, I just keep getting the questions, where do we get all these young, handsome, beautiful women? And that's what you guys are attracting into that ministry. And I do think their voices are going to be very effective in the decades to come. Yeah, I do think that Mike's got young kids, and I've got a grandchild on the way. So I'm in the fight.
Is a room full of people who truly love this nation, right? Who see it as the greatest nation on this earth. And you're willing to contend and fight for it and make a sacrifice for our nation because of the childhood that it brought us, right? And we want to see that passed down to future generations. And I think that was the heart of our founding fathers too, in that they were willing to contend and believe for something for future generations that would far surpass what they were living, in when we were under the rule of England, right? And the king. So really what you see is young people, and even now pastors, who are willing to say, I love my nation, to contend in the public square and fight for future generations. And that's the heart posture here.
I wish I would have had the video I did on Relevant Rants on Friday. And you can't get that up, can you, Josh? Probably doesn't know. But after the State of the Union last week, Ron Reagan came on. Have you seen that video yet?
Yeah, I think you sent it to me.
I did. Yeah, I did. And I don't think Nancy and Ronald did a very good job with this kid, because he's starting a push for atheists and agnostics to not let Christian agenda come into politics. And he said that, and it was an advertisement, he's basically saying, hey, join me while we push back from Christians coming into politics. And we know one thing, that people don't usually push back until the other group's effective, right?
That's right.
I think that could be one of the biggest signs that what you guys are doing is effective, because you have Ron Reagan coming out now saying, join me as an agnostic and atheist, so we can gather up and push back, keeping religious doctrine out of politics. So I think it's working. And then at the very end, he says this quote, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Jared. He says, I'm a proud atheist, and I'm not afraid to burn in hell.
Yeah.
Wow. He said that. I was like, what? What? And then I'm like, well, at least he's recognizing there is a hell. He's not afraid to burn in it. And I'm like, but isn't that the other side of the coin? If you're going to recognize that, then you've got to give some credit to what we believe in, which is an eternal life with Jesus Christ. And I was like, he's coming out and saying that. I mean, there's even another pushback coming from a group that is anti-belief or religious system, that's coming out to say, we're going to get the religious system, the Christians, to stay in their corner again, and we're going to gather up in a group. So I think that's a great, probably backhanded comment to what you guys are doing. And Daily Wire, our friends at the Daily Wire, they're pushing back hard. And there's two people, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jared. I mean, there's two people I think that have the ear of this generation. One is Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk. When I talk to people, they'll always talk. They know our affiliation and my daughter's affiliation with Daily Wire, and now ours with you. And they'll come up and they're listening. They're subscribing. They're listening, and I think that's all you can really ask for. Like, people's are gonna make up their judgment. But if you are out there and you're listening, I think the Bible says that we do renew our mind, which changes our habits.
Yeah.
You got the next couple minutes. Tell us a little bit, Jared, what you would like somebody to hear out there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, and I'll say this to what your previous comment on Charlie too, is, we're willing to go to the place where nobody else wants to go, right? We're willing to step foot on that college campus where nobody else really wants to go, right? And it's cool to see people who actually care enough, who are willing to sacrifice, because like you said, you don't join this, you don't jump into this thinking you're going to make a lot of money. I mean, you don't. So you get into this because you say, I'm willing to stand up and I'm willing to lose everything, because I know what I have to gain far surpasses what I have to lose, right? And what future generations have to lose. And that's their freedom, that's their rights, that's growing up in a government that is completely overran with tyrannical leaders, and are completely demonically deceived by some of our leaders in government across the whole nation, from state governments and local principalities to or municipalities to the federal government even, right? And so you have people who are willing to stand up and contend. And for me, this is where I was willing to lay it all down and say, I don't care what my friends, family, I don't care what my pastor friends across the country are going to say about me, but I'm willing to jump in here because I know my kids matter, and because future generations need this. So if you're willing to jump into the fight, we'd love to have you, but know that it is a fight, and nothing like this is ever easy, but it's worth it.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Jared, thank you so much for your time tonight. And thank your wife and your kids. And I just love your testimony where, your sister-in-law got a chance to minister and your mother-in-law claimed you for God's kingdom. It still works, people. We serve a faith system and that I can use every day, and you can use every day. And I hope you're out there and you could use that faith system. So, Mike, you want to rock us out?
Yeah. No, thanks guys for watching. Go out, support what TP Faith is doing, TP USA. And we're obviously big supporters of what they're doing. And if you want to connect with Jared, we'll make sure that his contact info, Instagram handle, Facebook. I think you're more active on Instagram, but we'll make sure all that's in the description after the show. And obviously follow Tom and I, and we'll share more stuff like this. So thanks guys for watching. Have a great day. God